the average borrower doesn't really know their options. And I would say that's a big problem in today's society where people might want capital, but they have no idea what they qualify for. Do they even qualify for it? Can they get 100,000? Could they get $1,000,000?
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larsen. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, we have Ian Samlin. He is the CEO and founder of REIL Capital, delivering tailored financial solutions grounded in trust and client success. And we're going to talk about today how small businesses can use private lending to help fuel their growth, help fund emergencies like Hurricane Helene that I faced last year in Asheville, North Carolina, and how he developed this business from a very young age at 23 years old. Ian, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Chris.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've really enjoyed our conversations at the masterminds where we've met a couple times here. We share a similar coach in Craig Ballantyne. Yeah, and we were catching up just here last month. I gotta say last month. It's the third here as we record this. But I wanted you to come on the podcast and share a little bit about your business with our audience, because it's something that a lot of people aren't aware of. But before we get into that, Ian, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background and kind of what led you to this point.
Yeah, so I was actually a sports management major. I thought I was going to be Jerry Maguire. And then I soon found out that I had to go to law school, and that dream ended pretty quickly. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew sales and was in my blood. My dad was always the sales guy, had his own business. My grandpa had his own business. So I always wanted to do something in the craft of sales, but I didn't know really what. But I knew helping out small and medium-sized businesses was kind of in my blood. And, any kind of opportunity that I could have to help small businesses is kind of what I was, navigating towards. So right out of college, I worked for a private lender, and I was kind of a capital specialist helping small and medium-sized companies across America, getting all different types of financial vehicles for their business.
Yeah. I love that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that small businesses really create all the new jobs, all the net new jobs in America. Big corporations, when they merge with other corporations, they tend to downsize, they tend to consolidate. That's where a lot of their, efficiencies and margin growth comes from. But it's small businesses that are out there creating these jobs and then growing into these big corporations. But what we've seen over the last couple decades is it's been harder and harder for these businesses to get money, Ian. And I want to dive into that, but I also want to kind of touch on something else. I know there's something that you share with my boys. My boys both play lacrosse. We've talked a lot about this. You were a lacrosse player as well when you were younger.
So I was the fat and lazy attackman.
Yeah, my son would not like that classification as the attackman. But one of the things when I was in sales and I was building sales teams, I loved to hire elite athletes. What are some of the lessons that you think really translate from athletics to being a business owner or being in sales and really being successful in your career?
Yeah, I would say the preparation, right? You want to know who you're playing. You want to be prepared before you get on the field. You want to know everything about the goalie, the defenders, the climate. So the more you can be prepared, that lesson kind of goes into everything, that you could possibly do, right? So this podcast, I spent some time this morning, last week, kind of preparing for some of the questions. And I just feel like the more preparation you have in life, the further you're going to go. And on top of that, I would say discipline is probably the main thing, right? Just showing up. There's always going to be people that are better than you, or are more skilled than you, or smarter than you. But just the consistency of showing up is a power that many cannot, consistently have.
Yeah. Those are such great lessons. And I really, that's something, you talked about the power of preparation. That's something I haven't heard a lot of people point out, but it is so true. A lot of times, people are like, oh, wow, he's so good doing that, it's like he's a natural. But then you come to find out, like Tom Brady, he's been out there just, practicing, or Kobe Bryant, 4 a.m. It's like,
Yep,
yeah, they have talent, but they're actually putting in the work and the preparation on the front end.
for sure.
Yeah. But the other thing, one of the things I love about athletes is that delayed gratification. You mentioned discipline as well. It's like athletes understand that, you're working towards, a game or a championship or the playoffs, or, 2 years down the road where you're preparing and cycling. You would have the off season, but it wasn't off. You're in the gym, you're lifting, you're training 4 hours in 40-degree weather outside when other people are, just trying to stay warm and do that. And, that delayed gratification, it's the essence of being a business owner, right? Where you come out and you do all this work on the front end, but business owners, I know you know this, are paid last.
Yep.
Yeah. So you started off, you said you were working for a private lender.
Yeah,
One of the things that impressed me the most, Ian, is you started your business at 23, if I recall correctly.
23. Yep. That's I was very young. Started with my
Yeah.
first cousin, Evan, and the rest is kind of history. Family
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think a lot of people that are business owners go through this evolution and say, okay, I've done this. When did you start that job? Like, when did you come out of college? When did you start? And what was the timeline between that and actually striking out on your own?
So I graduated in 2015, and I think I started this job in around August of 2015.
Yeah.
And I would say by March of 2017, Real Capital was incorporated.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. So within 2 years, less than 2 years, you're out there
Yeah,
and
I
doing it
mean,
on
look,
your
it
own.
was it was in my blood. I couldn't, I honestly, I think working for someone in the beginning of your, early stages is something you have to do.
Yeah.
Getting the experience, no matter how skilled you are or how much capital is behind you, you
Yeah.
need experience.
Yeah.
But from there, like, I just wanted to own my own thing and kind of run with it.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think one of the lessons I tell a lot of young people is, go out and get a job, but don't get the job for what it pays you. Get the job for what it'll teach you and how much more valuable it will make you in the future. And if you do that, like, my first job, I was making like 30 grand, and then it was 60 grand, then it was, 120, 200. Every time I was able to make a move, I was able to leverage that education, that experience into a multiplied amount of money going forward. And then obviously as a business owner, you can, those numbers can go as high as you want. And I think that's something a lot of people, going back to that delayed gratification, a lot of people come out, everybody's like, oh, you can have whatever you want now. You can order DoorDash, you can, look up something on the internet. Shoot, you can even get a date now with an app. It's like, there's no such thing as delayed gratification anymore. What do you like? How would you recommend to, younger people, the next generation, Ian, how do you really hone, that skill of delayed gratification, when it's really hard to find out there in the world today?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, all good things are worth waiting for. I know it's a little cliche, but
Yeah.
the the fact of starting, right? Having that experience and knowing what it could become is just endless. Right? If
Yeah.
you're working from someone, you know exactly what you're getting paid when you're getting paid. But
Yeah.
being your own business owner, you don't know when, your doors are going to shut, or you're not going to hit payroll, or,
Yeah.
you're making millions of dollars one day. That's the hope, right?
Yeah.
So just the unknown is something that I thrive on. I
Yeah.
don't know what tomorrow is going to bring. I love that feeling.
Yeah. Well, I would say that's not your average person that's out there today. And yeah, it certainly seems to be in your blood without a doubt. So yeah, let's talk a little bit. I know, small businesses, like we were saying before, you can get like an SBA loan, you can go out and do this. Talk a little bit about, the lending industry in general. What are the different type of products and avenues that are out there? Let's talk, and then let's get specifically into what you do with your company.
Yeah, for sure. So I would say that the average borrower doesn't really know their options. And I would say that's a big problem in today's society, where people might want capital, but they have no idea what they qualify for. Do they even qualify for? Can they get 100,000? Could they get $1 million? No one knows. So I think you really have to be paired up with the right liaison to understand what my options are and like what is the best suited for my business short term, and then kind of pivot into a long-term situation. So that being said, we have all different, products. We're a financial institution. We have SBA loans, which are government backed. Usually that's a higher credit profile, business owner, typically a 10-year term. We have term loans. We have lines of credit, equipment financing, hard money deals backed by assets. And then your typical bridge capital, someone needs capital tomorrow for payroll, we can help you out. So it really comes down to what you're going to qualify for, how the funds are going to be allocated, and when you kind of need the capital by.
Yeah. So for those listeners that are out there they're listening to this and they're like, well, I don't own a business. I don't really understand what you and Ian are talking about, Chris. A lot of people that, have a 9 to 5, they get a W-2 job. They're like, yeah, I can get a credit card. I can get a mortgage, I can borrow against an asset, so I got my consumer credit and I've got my real estate based credit. So explain for the audience how business lending, is different in that respect.
Yeah, I mean, typically it's going to be based on different criteria, such as, the revenue, your credit profile, how many open trade lines you have, the industry that you're in. Obviously, some industries are a lot riskier than others, higher default ratios, how long you've been open, do you have any defaults, liens, judgments, bankruptcies. So these are all factors that are going to kind of play into what you qualify for. But I think it's extremely important to understand that if my business has a major opportunity for growth, or my machine breaks down, who am I going to call and how quick can I get the funds? And then the main thing is, are you going to turn a return on investment on the capital that you're borrowing?
Right. Yeah, and that's that's the big thing. As business owners, I think a lot of us don't realize, when we start off in our businesses, you go from basically managing a predictable income stream that's coming in to managing unpredictable income streams. For people like us that were salespeople, we kind of are used to managing unpredictable income streams. You can have a killer month, you can have a really rough month. So salespeople, I think, maybe understand it a little more inherently. But I'll give you an example. Our business, when Helene hit last year, hit Asheville, we've got real estate, we've got, our business operations. But when Helene hit, we lost all our rents because we couldn't charge rent because we didn't have any utilities to provide. And it was a really tough period, from a cash flow perspective. So that's like a working capital example. You also mentioned like equipment financing that you guys do as well out there. Talk about some other cash flow needs that your clients typically have.
Yeah, I mean, a truck breaks down, unexpectedly. Payroll needs. You're purchasing a new business, different marketing efforts. So we see all the major growth opportunities they have. Unfortunately, we do see some of the bad stuff as well, where I need to meet payroll tomorrow, or they are off a really bad month. So you kind of see everything you could possibly imagine, or this is a gap or a bridge to my bank loan. There's really nothing we haven't heard in the last decade.
Yeah. What type of businesses do you work with?
Honestly, every industry. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, though, certain industries are going to score better. So medical, manufacturing, retail, restaurants are always going to score better from an underwriter perspective. But there's really, in businesses such as cannabis, we can get that done, but it's going to be a little bit tighter on the guidelines for sure.
Yeah. Can you share any? I mean, I know some of the SBA, terms. I've seen those. We've looked at those with some of our businesses. Obviously, I know what credit card interest rates are. Can you speak a little bit to how lines of credit work in terms of what people might qualify for with their revenue that's coming in, what interest rates they're looking at?
Yeah. So typically, you're only going to pay for what you borrow. We can usually qualify you for roughly 75 to about 100% of your average monthly revenue. We really want to make sure that your credit is at least 650, and our rates are going to be kind of in the teens to low 20s. and with the ability to always pay that off for a discount.
Yeah. So similar to a good credit card,
For sure.
something to that effect. So why not just get a credit card? Why come to why come to REIL?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe you already kind of tapped into every credit card that you already have. You need more capital than the current credit cards. You have utilization, and just speed, right? We
Yeah.
can have, you're dealing with a normal credit card provider. It might take a week, 2 weeks. Like for us, everything's usually done in 24 to 48 hours.
Wow. That's fast
So I'd say
turnaround.
speed is the
Yeah.
major component.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And you've got a lot of terrific resources on your website as well, Ian. You got your funding calculator. You've got some of your educational resources that are up
I would just
there.
like to say I take no
Yeah.
credit in that. I have a great team behind me, great developers. So,
Yeah. Well, hey, that's the key to being a business owner, right? Is having the
Yep.
right team behind you and doing that. How do I'd like to hear your perspective, as we look back, coming out of 2008, 2010, there was a lot of new banking regulations that were in place.
Yep.
It's become harder, to get loans for a lot of different things, as a small business owner. What do you see in terms of the economy today, going forward? What are some of your predictions with, rates where they are, some of the uncertainties that we see in the market?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think if anything, over 2008, 2012, COVID, it's really expanded the private sector. Because
Yeah.
if banks don't want to loan money,
Yeah.
someone has to. Because if
Yeah.
no one is giving out capital, all these businesses are going to shut their doors down. So if
Yeah.
anything, I'd say over the last 20 years, our industry has really grown and really made a name for themselves because the bank isn't loaning as much money as they once were. And when they
Yeah.
are, it's such a tight niche of what they want to kind of lend towards.
Yeah.
Credit's not 700. You don't have 5, 10, 15 years in business and your books aren't immaculate. The odds are that they're not going to give you capital. And if they are, you really have to be backed up with your documents. It's very document intensive, which it is worth waiting for. Their rates are going to be the best rates you can get, but sometimes you don't have the ability to wait and you need it quicker. So that's kind of where we play into the arena.
Yeah. No, I love that. Where did you come up with this idea? Like, was this what you were doing with the prior business as well?
Yeah, so I definitely did not come up with it.
Yeah.
Kind of ran with the opportunity. Again, I really liked helping different business owners, hearing out their situations,
Yeah.
and kind of being the middleman to what makes the most sense, right? There's no better feeling than getting a call from a client saying, you saved my life.
Wow.
I think we
Yeah.
both know Ferguson in the ETR, and
Yeah.
I think we saved him upwards of $23,000 a month in freed up
Wow.
cash flow utilizing an SBA loan. So we
Yeah.
refinanced him out of some high interest loans and got him into an SBA program. And just knowing what that did for his life, his business, there's no better feeling.
Yeah. So I think that's a great point. So, I mean, for business owners that are out there that are using, credit cards, different lines of credit, different things, one of the things is, if you can optimize the interest you're paying, if you can optimize, your cash flow, you can actually increase your operating margins significantly with a lot of things. Can you share any other examples of clients that you've helped?
Yeah, I mean, there's thousands, right? One of my buddies in Long Island has a big Bialy factory. So, are you familiar with what a Bialy is?
It's like it's like bread. It's like a savory pastry, right?
It's kind of like if a bagel and an English muffin had a baby. That's
Yeah.
what would come out.
Yeah.
So there's like onions in between. So
Yeah.
my friend Jared owns the biggest Bialy factory in Long Island, and they were waiting on a hard money deal for the building of what they own, but they needed 250,000. I think it was actually $500,000. They needed it very quickly, and they understood that the rates are a little bit higher, but they needed it fast. So what we kind of devised the plan is we wanted to kind of utilize the $500,000 as quickly as possible, but at the same time, we want it to pay off as soon as possible.
Right.
So how we really like to strive, on our deals is we want to give you the capital tomorrow, but we want you to pay us off in the next 30 or 60 days if you have a bankable kind of vehicle behind you. So by doing that, your typical bank is going to charge kind of a penalty. In this situation, it's kind
they
of
don't want to be paid off. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of an incentive. We call it a prepayment discount. So this is a way to kind of use our capital like a revolving line of credit, where you can kind of rinse and repeat and kind of gamify the system. Take the capital out, pay it off in 30 days, 31st day, redo it.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's like totally backwards from what most people understand. And I mean, even on our loans, on our big commercial properties, we have to pay really big prepayment penalties, sometimes multi-million dollars, if we pay those loans off too fast.
We love to actually sell against that. This is the exact opposite.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. And it's like, you get that money turning. I think it's confusing to some people, but us business owners that are out there, we understand, the value of being able to do that.
I would say it's the 1-2 punch, right? Where we want to put you on the longest term possible.
Yeah.
And by, having the longest term, your daily, weekly, bi-weekly, monthly payment to us is going to be the absolute lowest. But if and when you're ready and receivables are coming in, pay us off and, get rid of the debt.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. So Ian, who should reach out to you?
Honestly, any small and medium-sized business owners that are really curious what they qualify for, right? They might have debt already and, the payments are eating them alive. Well, let's talk and figure out what those payments are and get you out of that. How can we refinance that into a longer term to kind of lower the weekly, monthly obligation, right?
Yeah.
I would say our typical audience is anywhere from about $250,000 annually to $40-50 million. So really small and medium sizes, any industry, and people that have various needs of capital.
Yeah, no, I love that. You guys can be creative, and you're a business owner yourself, so you understand how this works. And that's one of the things that frustrates me. You go to a bank and you sit down, and you're not talking to a business owner. You're talking to somebody who is actually incentivized not to give you that loan in a way.
Corporate America.
Yeah. Where you guys want to lend the money, you can help work with them. You have various different options that are out there. So yeah, if you're a business owner, reach out to Ian. Check out simple website, reilcap.com. You can check out all the resources we mentioned. Anything else you'd like to add to that?
No, I would say that it's really important to just educate yourself on what you qualify for, because the more you know about your business, right? Again, your revenue, your credit, your debt, your average bank balance. These are all components that are gonna, dictate an underwriter. Are you bankable? Are you not bankable? Are you gonna pay off the capital? What type of risk appetite does the underwriter have for your business? So I think it's really important, even if you don't need capital, to really just understand what you qualify for that rainy day. And that rainy day can be a great opportunity. It doesn't have to be a doomsday situation.
Yeah. No, I love that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a rainy day. It could be a positive opportunity that you're looking to take that capital and multiply it.
Exactly.
Awesome. So check Ian and his business out at reilcap.com. That'll be in the show notes. And you even got an apply now button as well. So you can check that out and learn a little bit more about how Ian and his company can help you.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Ian. Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.